Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom and Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry. And today we are going to talk about the Bears and the draft landscape. We are here in the middle of the aftermath of the Justin Fields trade. And it is great. It is great to see so many fans that just continue. They can't read or refuse to use any logic. I'm getting bombarded by trolls on the the episode I did about Ryan Poles, which was done prior to the draft for the actual listeners who listen and the Better Bears fans, as you already know. But I didn't see that one coming. After the trade, people retroactively went back to the video and decided to try to trash things, but that is what it is. As I said, it's a sad life of what happened with Chicago, and I lost a lot of respect for a lot of people. But hey, we're gonna keep it moving. So we are now again firmly in the era, or in new territory, I should say, as we'll be bringing in a new quarterback. Obviously, a rookie quarterback. Once again, some things I think are obvious, but I never know what people are going to complain about. So I would say obvious we're going to bring in a rookie quarterback. I'm not going to say it's Caleb Williams because I very much think, well, I guess we should start there. We're going to talk about our picks and everything and just kind of talk about the draft class, which I've went through. I don't think that I'll get through the positional videos, maybe. But it's just I got other stuff to prioritize. But I've done my round one of grading. I've done a little bit of grading in the second round of evaluation. So I have a good grip on the class. But I probably won't be able to get the positional things. But we'll see. So we'll go through all of that today. So we'll start with the number one pick. Or our picks. We got the number one pick, the number 9 pick, then we don't pick to the 3rd round, then we pick in the 4th round, which was the Eagles pick, and that's it. With those trades that we made, those are 4 picks. And I want to say this up top. I think it looks pretty clear to me that Ryan Poles and the team, I don't want to keep putting it on Poles, but the team has decided that this rookie class is not exactly one that they want to attack heavy. I don't really anticipate us building too many picks. I do think trading out of 9 is a possibility, and we'll get to that. But I don't think we're going to go from 4 to 9 picks in this draft or anything like that. I do think it's a deeper draft in terms of the top talent's not there. And so, as I said before, the value is going to be in the later rounds or the mid rounds, 2nd through 4th. But it seems by the moves we made in free agency, I should say, that we are kind of building through the veteran landscape more so than the rookie landscape. The quarterback is kind of obvious because there are no veteran quarterbacks to get, and we're at the top of the draft. So that's going to be a rookie spot, but it seems like we're not going to put too many rookies into key positions this year as it stands, because even if we get a receiver or whatever, that's not going to be a key position when you got DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. But anyway, I don't want to get too ahead of what I'm going to talk about. So I just want to say that up front. I do think that we are building the 2024 Bears mostly through free agent. And this isn't going to, obviously there's people talking about the haul and all that stuff that really felt like, and even I told you the appealing part was not only this year, but by next year we could potentially have 10 first to second rounders and really be that type of team. But again, that is a philosophical thing. That's not the route it seems that we're going with the moves that we made. So we got 4 picks. Obviously, 2 of them are really crucial. And then we'll, 3rd and 4th ain't bad. Obviously, you'd rather have a 2nd and 3rd. but third and fourth not bad, as opposed to a third and a fifth or a fourth and a sixth. So those are going to be premium rounds this year. So we still should be able to get some quality players. So with that being said, I already kind of went over the picks we got. This draft class, just kind of overview, as I mentioned before, you got some good talent at the top, but really a lot of lack of defensive firepower, a lot like last year. A very rare deep receiver class and a rare deep tackle. I'm going to say rare because we've had it a couple years, but a deep tackle class. But this is one of the deeper classes that we've seen. And so those are kind of the two positions. Corner, I came into this draft season with a lot of people saying that corner was similar to receiver and tackle. I don't agree. I think what it is you lack any real top talent. And so a lot of these players are more mid-tier corners. And by mid-tier, I mean just solid prospects. And because of that, there's going to be a lot of nitpicking between which one you like and which one you don't. Now, there's some interesting things that'll come into play with the corner class in terms of injuries and other stuff. But for the most part, that's not a star-studded group. It's just a lot of really solid players. And then, outside of that, I mean, the running back market is kind of dying as a whole, and this isn't considered a great class. There's no Bijan Robinson to tempt you in the first round, nothing like that. And like I said, defense as a whole, you probably won't get a safety in the first round unless you count Cooper DeJean, and even he's coming off injury. And then edge rusher, D-line is just not a strong year. So that is kind of what we're looking at. The draft to me, I think I said yesterday, the draft to me happens in the first 5 picks. The first 5 picks, and then after that, I think your bang for your buck is going to be the end of the first round through early to mid second round. That's pretty much what I'm kind of looking at right now, because again, with the receivers, you have some guys that are on a different caliber in terms of a Marvin Harrison Jr., a Dunze, a Neighbors. And then after that, the next group, while really good prospects, not on the same level, whether you're talking about a Brian Thomas Jr., whether you're talking about Adonai Mitchell. I don't really put Xavier Worthy in there. I would put Ladd McConkey and Kean Coleman before him. And so you go on from there. That second tier is a lot of people, and that third tier is a lot of people. So receivers are going to run for a while. And then tackle, I went to me it's the same way. It's Joe Alt and Latham. They're on 2 different levels. And there's a lot of people that still will talk about Olumuyama. I had it before. I ain't said it in such a long time. But a lot of people that talk about Fashanu, and at least early on, but now that I think that conversation has completely flipped. People don't look at him in that top area. Fuaga is a person a lot of people talk about. So is Fontenot. But I don't see those as the type of prospects as other people do. Good prospects, but definitely not in the same tier as Latham and Alt. So once you go past the 2 premium tackles, there's just a lot of really good tackles that kind of have their own quirks and play styles. And again, that group is going to run pretty deep as far as the tackle. I mean, you got guys that I love like Kingsley Suamataia coming out of BYU, and he's more than likely going to go in the second to third round. And I think he's one of the better out of the group. And then you got guys like Kieran. I forgot how to pronounce all these names, but Kieran out of Yale, I think he's great and very underrated. And then on top of that, you got some risers like Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame, and then you got the right tackle out of Washington too, who measured well, test well, so people are raising them up. And so the tackle group is deep. The safety group, and as I said before, safety is more of a veteran type position. It ain't too many safeties that are really young making huge impacts. And so this isn't a very highly favored group, but also on top of that, that's just not a position that people are going to go after early. And not necessarily one that we need to worry about, but I'm just kind of going through the position. So that's what you're looking at in the draft. Obviously, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, they changed the whole landscape of the top of the draft because quarterbacks get pushed up. Moves happen for quarterbacks. Now a team like, let's say, Arizona, who is clearly in play for a receiver, they might move because of a trade up, and now that pushes a receiver down. So a lot of those moves could potentially happen when you got quarterbacks. Now you got J.J. McCarthy being talked about in that group, and that I am not one of those people, but that could change things, and it's just tough. Like I mentioned in the community the other day, the Texans like completely traded out of the first round. They didn't have another first round pick. They're not picking in the first round, and I'm not saying they got a bad deal, but they happily did that, and I think they're originally picking at like 23 or something. And at that part of the draft, you're not missing out on something because that's the draft game. That's always the draft game. What am I giving up to take this player right here? Not just do I like the player, but what am I giving up for him? And they probably felt like, okay, for the compensation, we could get really good stuff in the second round. And so that's what I'm talking about. The difference with the Bears is that we have number 9. We don't have number 23. So it's not as simple as just trade back into the second round. If we were to trade into the second round, it would have to be a much different compensation. Well, at least you would hope so. So what are the options? What are the different options? What are the different thoughts out there? So again, starting at number 1, this is what, again, what I'll say is not necessarily a lock to me. I won't say that Caleb Williams is a lock, but I will say that's the high probability. That's, of course, what I would do. On top of that, I do want to say that you could potentially see a trade back, as I mentioned before, that if the Bears like a particular quarterback, that they could trade back to number 2 or 3. Now, that's it. Justin Fields is gone. So there is no safety net here. You're not trading back to number, like I saw some people saying, oh, you could, trade back and get McCarthy at like 9. No. I mean, I don't know about McCarthy. I don't care because that's not who I want. But you're not going to hinge your franchise on waiting that many picks. So in my mind, and again, I don't know what these Bears fans these days are going to get mad at, but I think it's very simple that we're picking within the first 3 picks. And so if we like somebody that's not Caleb, then yes, I think there's still potential we could trade back 1 or 2 picks and that we can get some compensation that adds to our draft this year and still get the quarterback we want. Now, my evaluation has been the same. I got Caleb Williams at number 1. Jaden Daniels is a close 2. Somewhat close, relatively. The thing is, what's weird is you can be the same grade as a prospect, but have 2 completely different styles, and I think that's what some people don't take into account. So I have Jaden Daniels rated pretty highly, but what he brings is different than what Caleb brings, and so but Caleb is my number 1. And this Drake May talk, let's get these 2 out the way. If you're a better Bears fan, because that's what I'm focusing on going forward, I'm not focusing on these trolls. If you're a better Bears fan, you like this content, you like to get into the details and actual logical discussion, then you understand my position on Drake May, or at least you've heard it. And you might disagree, and that's fine, but again, like I always feel, I would challenge anybody to pull up the film and show me something different. Drake May, outside of having the prototypical stature of a quarterback, I haven't really seen any analysis that I agree with that says he's the number two, let alone better than Caleb, like I'm hearing some people say. And so I hear this talk about play style, which again is a thing, but I'm like, do you really need to watch Drake May? His accuracy is not what Caleb Williams is. Now, if you're literally talking about the type of offense he ran makes you feel more comfortable, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. If that's your opinion, I would just say that is a bad way to evaluate. When it comes to the actual skill set, Caleb is more accurate than Drake May. Point blank period. Drake May's accuracy is way more questionable than people would like to tell you. And again, I don't get paid for this. This ain't my job. I'm not spending hours to cut up tape to prove that I'm right just to have people say you're a hater and all that. Like, no, but if you really watch the stuff yourself, you could go see his accuracy is much more sporadic than people give him props for. And what I look at it as is similar, but not as bad as Will Levis. And so on top of that, he's not the athlete that people try to say he is. As I said many times before, running in straight line is not the same thing as being quick or explosive or any of that. Drake May goes down pretty easy. He goes down pretty easy when they get to him, and it's a pocket awareness isn't really where I want it to be. So there's a lot of things with Drake May that I'm like, no, not even close to the number two, let alone anywhere close to Caleb Williams. So I've already talked about Caleb Williams. I'm not going to do that again, but that's how I feel about Drake May. Marvin Harrison Jr., I still see it, and blame me, shame on me. Listening to the radio, looking at the chats, looking at Twitter still, I see all this Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's cool, like, if you think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a top prospect. But the way people are talking about him as if it's a fact, as if he's like on a different level than the other two guys, it's not true. As I said, Odunze is my number one of the receiver group. And Harrison he's just not that much different. Oh, I wouldn't say different, but he's not that much ahead. Malik Neighbors has a level of explosion and acceleration that is very rare. I'm talking top 5 in the league. And there's some things to like about him, but that alone is what people are going to be excited about. But then when you come to Odunze, that's the complete package. My thing with Marvin Harrison, and I've seen more people as we get deeper into it, and in the actual NFL people get into it, and funny, they start to say some of the similar things. They question a lot about the yak. Now, I'm not big into that because a possession receiver is important as well. But yes, I didn't grade his yak highly, but I wouldn't say that's my issue. My thing with him is more of his hips. They're linear, and I've been saying that from the beginning. So if you're new or if you continue to wonder why I feel what I feel about Marvin Harrison, that's what it is. You're not going to be, and again, it's scary. That's why a lot of people don't do it. But I'll put my name on that. You're not going to be an elite route runner if you do not have the ability to sink your hips and have hip fluidity. There's a reason they grade it. There's a reason they look for it. And it's not to say that all the top receivers are elite route runners. And it's not to say that Marvin has to be one. He has skill sets in other areas. And again, I think he's in that top tier receiver prospect. But Odunze for me is easily the number one, where there's very few holes in this game. And so again, don't try to run with that and saying I'm saying Marvin sucks or any of that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But Marvin isn't my target because he's not my receiver one. And if the market or the buzz has him higher than Odunze, fine. I'm happy. I want Odunze over Marvin. And I also just push back against people that act like he's like a no-brainer that's the guy we got to get, and like that's going to be game changing. First of all, we got DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. It ain't going to be game changing because you're not going to be in that role where you need to be game changing. So there's that. I had to say my piece on those two. So number one, I think that's kind of locked up. 9, that's where a lot of the intrigue happens. What will we do? What can we do? I think obviously there's as I mentioned, a number of people that still feel like trading up for Marvin Harrison is the move. I don't know how much ammo we have to do that, but off my own logic, again, of what we've been doing, based off some of the beat reporters who are around this stuff and said what they are hearing and what they feel from Poles' discussions they're going to do, more than likely will trade back than to trade up. And that's how I feel too. I do think we could stick and pick. Like for me personally, it's Odunze or his neighbors. Outside of that, and maybe Joe Alt, maybe I'm trading, because I went through the roster of the day. I guess at some point people lost faith in Braxton Jones. I don't know. I thought I was the one that was a little more critical of Braxton Jones, and the fans were always sticking up. But apparently everybody's saying we need a tackle. I know it's not Darnell Wright, who I haven't got to the film, as I mentioned I want to in the summer. And a lot of people say he was great towards the end and all that. I didn't see that on tape, but I look forward to watching. And I was a huge Darnell Wright fan coming out, so I know he's got the ability to do it. So if you love Darnell, then it's got to be Braxton, because why else do you want? Everybody keeps talking about a tackle. And so if Joe Alt, I love Joe Alt. J.C. Latham, I think, is a straight up right tackle. I think he's different, in some ways better than Darnell Wright, but we don't need two of those guys. So I would say Joe Alt, Neighbors, Odunze. If it's not one of them, I'm not really pausing. I'm looking to trade out. Because as I said, Neighbors has an elite trait, and Odunze is my number one receiver prospect. And that could, is adding kind of icing on the cake, but I'm fine with that, because we don't have a ton of holes, and you're not it's not a ton of top 10 picks. As I said before, the top level talent is very scarce. So people, once again, that don't really do this like I do, they act like, oh, you got drafted at 10, you're a top 10 prospect. No, that's not the same thing. Somebody has to go. And so Dallas Turner in the average year is not a top 10 pick. Jared Verse in the average year is not a top 10 pick. Byron Murphy, not a top 10 pick. That is what it is. So for me, I'm at 9. I'm not forcing myself to take any of those guys. Dallas Turner has a lot to polish up on. Verse is regressed to me, and he's kind of stiff. And that's kind of been the word in the NFL circles, which is why a lot of people don't think he'll go that high. I mean, but typically what happens in these types of drafts is that you're going to get unexpected picks, because that's what happens all season. You have nobody that is national, I should say, because people like me, there's a lot of people like me that talk draft, but people don't really care. But nationally, you only really have a few people like Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, who's horrible, and then Mel Kiper. So they are the first ones to give you the info. Like me, a lot of people like, I don't even know who these players are. Okay, these are the names. Then you get mock drafts. You see those names, and you see it over and over for months. And so people expect they're going to be in this area. And it doesn't always go like that, because each team doesn't look at these people the same. And the class is weak, but people do not understand a weak draft class. I'm telling you, casual fans do not understand a weak draft class, because they cannot compute. You went in the first round, you were a top 15 pick, you had to be that good. No, it's just the class that you're in. So as I said before, I believe it was Matt Miller who said he has 9 first round grades. 9. And I probably would fall somewhere around there. I don't do that type of evaluation, but I would probably fall somewhere around there. But people do that every year. Every team does that every year. there, and so a Texans team might not have many people in their picking range that they think are first round talents. So guess what? I'll gladly trade out into the second round because the guys that we think are first round caliber, either we don't need or they're too far for us. And so that's the type of draft we have. And so we should probably expect some random stuff. But again, looking kind of at the draft, potentially trading out of 9, recouping a second. As I said, second through fourth round, that's where the draft is really going to be bang for your buck. So if Odunze's gone, Neighbors is gone, Alt is gone, I'm gone. I'm trading out of that pick. Is the best value you probably could get at that point is one of these tackles, more than likely a right tackle, a true right tackle that you don't need. More than likely a corner, which is never bad to have corners, but you kind of got starters now, and you got one that's cheap on his rookie deal, so you don't really need to mess with that. And then the rest of it is it's a mismatch. Like, unless there's a receiver you absolutely love, I don't see that you wouldn't be able to get him later. Maybe a Brian Thomas, maybe. But other than that, I really feel like you could trade to the middle of the first round or the 20s or to the top of the second, and you could still get the receiver that you want. So for me, I think that's the high probability that we trade back. Now, what are we going for? As I said, receiver, I think is still good. Obviously, injuries happen, and it's good to have depth at that position. I do think, depending what happens with Brock Bowers, that might be in play. I know we got 2 tight ends, but as I said, Waldron comes from a system that likes 3 tight ends, not just 2. But I do think that potentially could be in play. But really, I'm looking at the receivers. And that's pretty much the big thing. And that's what happens when you don't have a lot of big defenders. My gut reaction is get to the 20s, pick your favorite interior offensive lineman, and go from there. But that's if you can't get a second round pick, obviously. But if you could trade back to the 20s and get a second round pick, then you got more flexibility there. But I kind of talked about my wish list, but now that the roster's kind of formed more, look, I don't have an issue at all with Worthy. I'm sorry, not Worthy, Murphy. Byron Murphy from Texas. He was not in a 3-tech position, so he's going to look very different depending if a team chooses to use him that way. So watching the tape doesn't necessarily give you the full story on him. Definitely not looking at the stats. So he has that juice that I think he could, get down with. But at the same time, I don't think that's a slam dunk 3 technique. And then you got Newton, who I guess has shorter arms, so people are kind of wary about him. But I think he has real good juice too. Both of them, I think they just don't have the profile that a lot of people are used to in terms of height, weight, athleticism. And so people act like it's kind of a question when I don't necessarily feel that way myself. But I also don't feel like they have elite traits to say that they're going to be one of the next dominant 3-techs. I don't know. And with the short arms, that does kind of play a little bit into it, but not overly for me. I like Chop more than Verse, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be mad at that, but honestly, I don't think this is the draft where it's like we're going to get that difference maker. You're more than likely going to get an edge player that has to develop and takes time to develop. I do think having juice on the other side helps kind of no matter what, rather than somebody that has no juice. But to be in the mindset that we're going to get like a legit pass rusher, I wouldn't really hang my hat on that for this draft. So to me, the best move is to move back. But looking again at the positions and availability, I like the idea of a lot of different receivers, so I won't really name just one. I've already talked about some of my favorites in that group. But I do like the idea of getting one of these interior offensive linemen. And like I said before, I like the idea of getting a tackle and letting them play guard. I mean, they'll be good at guard. And then if something happens, they can play tackle. And so if we're looking in the second round, third round, and we want to get one of these tackles that might be falling, like a Patrick Paul, if a Kingsley would have fell down, any of those type of guys, I'm cool. Interior lineman, Cooper BB, I think is very underrated. But Jackson Powers Johnson is probably my favorite out of the interior group. But it's a number of those guys that I could see us targeting again in that third round. And then fourth round, we got to kind of figure out what we want to do. But again, looking at our roster, we plugged in a lot of holes, a lot of defensive back depth. Obviously, starting free safety. Linebackers we got coming back. D-line, we got a lot of guys on the D-line, so everybody's naturally looking at that other defensive end spot. But offense, interior offense, we got a center that people presume can start if need be. I don't think that's what they want. I do think they want to bring in a rookie that's versatile and kind of fit him in because we know how injuries are. And then receiver, we know we upgraded there, but a third one could still be in the mix, and we got 2 capable tight ends. So really a lot of holes have been plugged. And I think, again, going into this draft strategy, one, you're probably going to take Caleb at 1 or trade down within the first 3 picks, take a quarterback. 9, for me, is Odunze Neighbors or Alt, and other than that, I'm trading. But picking at 9, Dallas Turner is an option, and I don't know about first, potentially, I guess. I think that'd be a reach, but I guess. But I think the high probability is we trade back out of there. And then the question is how far back do we trade? That'll tell you a lot. Like, again, if we traded out of the first round from 9, we would have to be getting like 2 second-round picks or something. So, excuse me, that'll tell me what we're doing. But for this draft in general, we're getting our quarterback. And then I think we're bringing in depth, man. I don't know, honestly, that we're aiming to bring in any starters just based off what the roster is right now. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. And I've gave my wish list. I don't know if people want me to do that again, but I gave kind of the guys that are on my radar that I really would like to see on the team. So that's kind of our draft outlook. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.